Hi, I'm Lee from the Be Happy channel. Today I'm interviewing Stephanie Barger. Forgive me as I look away because I don't want to miss anything from the notes that I made about Stephanie. Stephanie Barger is a skilled dog trainer focusing on easing separation anxiety and improving dog behavior. She initially taught humans, but shifted to dog training over 10 years ago, with her mission being to enhance the bond between you and your dog, aiming for a peaceful coexistence. Her business, Canine Zen, reflects her philosophy on life with dogs. She views dogs as aware, social creatures who require empathy and support to adapt to our human centric world. She teaches effective communication between dogs and their pet parents, freeing them and helping them understand each other better. Her approach promotes a learning environment free from fear, pain, or judgment for dogs and humans. She's dedicated to helping you overcome the challenges you face with your dog, even if you feel like you've exhausted all options. She combines her teaching expertise with a compassionate approach and provides practical training strategies. Please feel free to contact her, but you can also ask questions of Stephanie in the comments below. Listen to the interview, and whatever you can think of, we'll make sure that she answers those questions. Also, stick around because as the video goes along, she not only talks about separation anxiety in dogs, she also talks about some of the services that she offers for free. She talks about wonderful tips for keeping a dog happy if you're bringing home a new dog, whether it's a puppy or a full-grown dog that you've adopted. And she talks about toys, including Kong toys. You know, I have a dachshund, and dachshunds have very strong jaws, and I can never seem to get a toy that will keep our dachshund Milo happy. She talks about that too. So please stick around and listen to all of her great tips. I look forward to this so much, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So let's get started. Hey, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited about our conversation. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Time change is kind of, playing a little bit of havoc, but other than that, I'm doing well and I'm very excited to be here to talk to you today.
I see a very special friend behind you on the sofa.
Yes, yes. This is Trayan Bond. He is my retired service dog. He's about 12 years old, and that's kind of his, oh, mom's going to be talking at the computer for a while. So I'll just rest here.
Um,
Um, his name means fair-haired hero in Scots Gaelic. So that's kind of a little bit about him, but he's been my service dog for quite some time. He still helps out at home, but he just doesn't go out with me.
okay, good for you. How old is he?
He's about 12. We're not
Wow,
100% sure he was a rescue. So, you know, um, at least 11, possibly 12, possibly 13.
good for
So,
you. Sure. Is he a purebred or a mix?
no, he's a mix, but we did do the DNA. So he is a 50% American Staffordshire Terrier. So that's one of the pit bull breeds. Lovely personality and a great dog. So,
Wonderful. So tell us about what a certified separation anxiety trainer is. Now, you also do behavior modification as well, correct?
I do. I work with more of the difficult behavior cases. So I really specialize in the helping people that need that extra level of training. They need more than basic manners. Group classes isn't ideal for what I do. So I really just concentrate on helping people with fearful and anxious dogs in general, but specializing in behavior mod and separation anxiety.
We're going to focus on separation anxiety today, but maybe we can have you back sometime and we can
Mhm.
talk about the behavior modification part because it's easily
Yeah.
fill quite a lot of time and space. So, what
Yes.
inspired you to become a certified separation anxiety trainer?
Well, I learned as I was dog training that a lot of people turn away separation anxiety cases. They're very complicated, and there's a lot going on both from the people side of things as well as the dog side of things. It's really overwhelming and has a lot of emotions dealt with it. A lot of people feel like they're prisoners to their homes because they can't leave their dog. And I just really enjoy the problem solving when it comes to more complicated cases. And separation anxiety seemed to be a great fit since there was so little out there on the internet that's helpful. A lot of those solutions, if your dog really does have a problem being alone, they don't really work in the long term. And so I went ahead and took Milena DiMartini's CSAT course, and it's an extensive course and is basically the gold standard for protocols for separation anxiety. We really see a lot of progress, and I really enjoy changing people's lives.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what skewed me towards it. And I always wanted to move to remote training, and separation anxiety really lends itself to that because it's about leaving the dog alone.
I want to ask you about remote training in just a second, but first, for people who don't know what separation anxiety is,
Mm-hmm.
how does it look? What
How
does
does
it,
it look?
yeah, what does it look
Um,
like if your dog has separation anxiety? I know how
yeah,
it feels because I had to live with that with an animal for a while, and it feels like heck. It's really
yes, it is
much
not fun.
do
It is
that.
not fun. Yeah.
So,
So I don't know how much detail and how specific you want me to go into things. There is a difference between clinical separation anxiety and a dog that struggles with being separated from people. Okay, that's more isolation as anxiety as opposed to separation anxiety. So there is a difference, but the common term that everybody kind of knows is separation anxiety. So that's what we go ahead and use just because the general public doesn't know the nuances. But basically, it means that your dog does not feel safe when left home alone. Okay. And that can manifest in a number of different ways. The ones that, at least in the past, people were more aware of are things like barking, whining, howling, tearing up the house, destroying things, neighbors complaining, soiling in the house, even though that they are well house trained. So this is all of symptoms of that anxiety. What we are actually seeing, though, is that if you get a camera on a dog, there are signs that they're uncomfortable that you don't know about because there's not any evidence after you come home of it. Okay. So also things like pacing, panting, not being able to settle, low tone whines, um, a lot of drooling. Sometimes they drool so much that there are puddles on the floor and people mistake that for urination, but it's actually they're drooling so much that that there's puddles of drool on the floor, or their chest is all wet. And if that's happening, you may not necessarily recognize it because you're not seeing it happen and there's no evidence afterwards.
that's interesting. What percentage, any idea what percentage of dogs suffer from
So
separation?
we don't know 100%. There was a study, and I'm sorry, I forget the year, done with veterinary behaviorists, and they say that up to 59% of their cases are separation anxiety cases.
Wow. Wow.
So it's quite high. And those are the ones that are the case is difficult enough and challenging enough and a big enough problem that they're actually going to a veterinary specialist dealing with a veterinary behaviorist, which is a whole different set of additional study for the veterinarian, and that is coming from their client records where they're
Right.
reporting
So
that
there's
someone
so
has
many
come.
more that we're not even seeing or aware of that
Yes,
it
yes, exactly.
way
And that
behind.
doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't count the people that don't see the veterinary behaviorist, but are working with their own regular vet to help
Hmm.
deal with it.
Very good. So have to ask you this, you always think of dog training, and is training the right word?
It's commonly used, yes.
Okay.
Dog training, yes.
You always think of it being done in person. You
Hmm.
know,
Yes.
if I'm sitting and I'm trying to teach my dog, say, to sit and stay, I'm doing it right there with the dog in front of me. Yet you are able to, rather miraculously, work with people virtually, just the way you and I are
Yeah.
talking here today. Does
Hmm.
that really work? I mean,
It
really?
does. I see some great progress. It absolutely works, especially with what I specialize in, because whether it's separation anxiety or behavior modification, you're talking about a dog that is fearful and anxious about things that are not normal, okay, or things that they don't understand as normal. They perceive it as unsafe or a threat. And we have to remember this is the dog's perception. So for separation anxiety, it's about leaving the dog alone. And if I come in and they're already not comfortable with strange people coming into their house, and then we up and leave on top of now the dog has experienced anxiety because a strange person is in their home, and then we leave to practice the alone time, then that only increases the anxiety, right? It's trigger stacking. It's difficult situation followed by difficult situation.
So it's actually
On top of
bigger.
that, yeah, on top of that, old school was, you were, because we didn't have cameras, you're peeking in through the doorways, trying in the windows, trying to see what is the dog doing? Do I need to come back? And so this way, there's not an introduction of a new person. It's all done over Zoom and through Google spreadsheets. I write up we call them missions, think practice session. Okay. I write those up for them to do throughout the week. And then we meet weekly on Zoom to do a reassessment just to see where the dog is at. And so I can see, provided the camera setup is good, which is one of the things that we make sure of. I can see what the dog is experiencing and what the dog is doing. And so on top of that, um, your trainer, your CSAT is actually seeing the behavior of the dog, not necessarily relying on someone else's interpretation of what is being seen. And so we kind of cut out that middleman for those reassessments because it takes a while for dog guardians to really understand the nuances of dog body language. Most of the time, we don't recognize it until it becomes big and they're yelling.
Hmm.
And there's lots of much more subtle signs that someone with a trained eye can pick up, even with the cameras. And, there's challenges if the camera's not set the right way, or their Zoom audio settings aren't set the right way, or um, a dark black dogs, like single colored dogs, black dogs, that can be sometimes a little bit harder to read those subtle signs. But it really actually does speed up the process because you're really practicing a normal routine, right?
Yeah. So I'm thinking, not only does it work better, but for so many people, it's so much easier. You know, having to put a dog in
Mm-hmm.
a car and come to see you, or having to have you
Mm-hmm.
into their home. Not everyone's always ready to open the door every time, you know.
Right.
Or I'm thinking
Exactly.
of COVID, you know, during
Mm-hmm.
that time that people, from what I heard, people were adopting more animals because there was more
Mm-hmm.
loneliness out there. But then there's
Yes.
the separation anxiety. How do you deal with it if you can't leave your home? Well, they could with you. How perfect is
Right.
that? Are there a
Right.
lot of people? And you use the term CSAT, and for those who
Mm-hmm.
don't know, that stands for Certified Separation Anxiety Trainer. So if we continue to use it,
Yes.
go along, you'll know what we're talking about. Are there very many people that do it virtually?
Well, everyone that has graduated from Milena DiMartini's course does. That's the standard practice. Um, And for anybody who's interested in learning more about separation anxiety, she has a great book out. It's called Separation Anxiety. Actually, she has two, but the most recent one is Separation Anxiety in Dogs, Next Generation Treatment Protocols and Practices. Um, And so that's actually an enhancement of a previous publication that she did. Um, Last time I looked, I think that there were approximately 200, maybe 250 people that have gone through her course. So there are plenty of dogs out there for all of us. Um, and we all work together. We have a support group where we can talk, talk about cases. Of course, we always confer with our clients first to make sure that that's all right. So not only are you getting my expertise, but you're also getting the expertise of everybody that has graduated from that course. When I've hit a wall, if I hit a wall, then I have other people that are familiar with the protocols and do the same thing that I do and say, am I missing something?
Why do you think it is that people shy away from using a professional if they're having a dog that has if they have a dog that has separation anxiety? I mean, people just
So,
kind of have a tendency to want to try to live with it or to either give the dog up for adoption, right? They don't always pursue it.
yes, they don't. One of it is that frustration, not realizing that it can be changed, not realizing that the sooner that you get help, the less time it takes to change. Just like us, if we've been doing a habit for 5 years, that's
Yeah.
a harder shift than it is if you realize, oh, I've been doing this for the last week. Maybe I need to address that. And also embarrassment. I think also it's there's an impression that you're in this alone, um, and that nobody really understands. And that goes back to what I was saying about some of the stuff that's out on the internet and some of the things that clients tell me that they get from family members and friends about suggestions on what to do. And they just kind of get into a place where they just don't think that there is a way forward. Um, don't get me wrong, it is a long road. It's not something that is going to change quickly, and it is generally not something that is linear. As a matter of fact, if the dog keeps improving for too long, I'm expecting a regression or a plateau at least, right? Where we're gonna be a little solid for a while and not be able to increase that time out. But or we could have a drop, and they also don't realize how complicated it is. They think that there's a simple approach to it, but there's so many moving parts when it comes to what is affecting your dog when they're alone. And there's a lot of concurrent issues. There are a number of dogs that have separation anxiety that also have sound sensitivities. So, there's a lot of moving parts. And so it can be very overwhelming.
Sure, I bet. And every dog is different. You were talking about
Mm-hmm.
how everybody has these suggestions telling you what you need to do or what you shouldn't be doing, and all the stuff out there on the internet that might not be completely true or a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
an urban legend.
A
And
little bit mythy,
yeah,
or
yeah,
at the very least outdated.
uh-huh. And the fact that every dog is their own individual, forgive me for saying it, person, they all have their
Mm-hmm.
own personalities. They having someone one-on-one that can really look at my dog and know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I need to be doing and to be able to
Mm-hmm.
separate that out fairly easily, really, if you have the right
Mm-hmm.
training. That's an incredible blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, and also it's not just that the dogs are individuals, each household is unique,
yeah.
right? So there's a very big difference between a training plan for a dog that lives with a single person who works from home, and has more flexibility on their time than a dog that lives with a family of five where there's small children or teenagers with activities or elderly parents in the home. So those things have to be taken into consideration as well. You can be the best trainer on the planet and give the best training plan on the planet to somebody. But if it doesn't fit for their household, they're not going to be successful, because it's not sustainable. It's not, and this has got to be something that they can sustain. They've got to
Right.
be able to put in the practice. They've got to be able to, find the time, and they've got to be able to, just do the protocols. So even something like limitations on people's physical ability, it
Mm.
comes into play, right? Because the way I tell you to do something may need to change because you cannot physically do that.
Right. That makes complete sense. And speaking of physical limitations, yet another reason why a person might not be able to leave the house or easily have
Mm-hmm.
someone in or virtual makes it easier. So
Mm-hmm.
every dog is unique, every situation, every household is unique, and yet you probably have some overriding philosophy that you have when it comes
I do.
to training and working with dogs. What are your philosophies?
So first and foremost, it's all about no fear or pain for the dog. Okay. And like you said, every dog is different. And so what may cause fear in one dog may not cause fear in another. And so that is kind of the baseline of everything that I do when I'm working with my clients. Um, and meeting the dog where they're at. Don't expect them to do better than they can. It's kind of my job to help the guardians get their dog to a place where they would like, but that's not where we're starting, and we have to meet the dog where they're at. And also the people in the home, as I mentioned. And then moving at everybody's pace, right? Some people and dogs learn differently, learned faster, slower. And so that's where that tailored plan comes in, where the whole household is taken into consideration. And I really look at a holistic approach. It's not just about getting the dog to do something that you want them to do. You also have to be paying attention to making sure that there aren't any health problems that are affecting their behavior. Are they getting a good diet? Are their needs being met? Are they getting enrichment? Um, all of that, the overall welfare of the dog and their guardians is what I'm really focused on. Okay, and frequently that means that we're forming a team. I work with veterinary behaviorists. I work with veterinarians. I work with dog walkers, and boarders to kind of help make sure that that team is working, so that all of those needs are being met, and take some of the pressure
Mhm.
off of the people.
That's wonderful. And so you probably have a really strong built-in support system when it comes to being able to, you're not just meeting with someone once a week. What type of support system do you offer to people?
So it's different depending on whether it's separation anxiety or behavior mod. So I'll talk about the separation anxiety. I provide them with missions daily, and they provide me with notes on how it went. And I review those every single day, and do the problem solving, look at the data, and then create the next one, so that we're always kind of fluid, right? There's not, okay, first I've seen you this day. Now for the next 5 days, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's always changing, based on the information that I'm getting from the clients. Um, the weekly meetings, part of that, sometimes it can be a cheerleading session, right? Because it's been a rough week, and they're, at a place where it's like, is this ever going to get better? And so being able to point out to them the progress that they've made, and how well the dog is doing in comparison to when we started. One of the things that I will do in those situations frequently, because I record the initial assessment, um, I will play back that first initial assessment. This is where we started. You couldn't even get out the door without your dog starting to panic. And here we are now. We may only be at 5 minutes, but now they're not trying to bolt out the door behind you. They're not, pacing and panting and howling the whole time. They can be there for 5 minutes and be calm. And so I'm available to my clients within my business hours, right? I do have to keep those boundaries so that I can be fresh and be able to, sustain the support that I want to have for them. Um, but clients can reach out to me at any time, and then I will get back to them as soon as I possibly can.
Are you allowed to share a success story or two? Do you have a favorite?
Um, you know, um, I do have one. He was a little bit of a unicorn, okay, because he moved very, very quickly. And I think that the reason for that is that he was one of those COVID dogs. And so they were home, and then all of a sudden everybody was called back into work, and then they were not. And the dog had never really been kind of built up to, hey, it's safe for nobody to be home with you, because someone always was. um and so I think that that was part of it, just never given the alone time training that can help mitigate any kind of development of separation anxiety. That being said, there's genetic components to it as well, and so that alone time training doesn't always solve that problem. um, and he couldn't even last seconds if they went out just into the garage, not even like leaving really, okay, or walking to put the trash cans out. um, and within 3 months he was able to be fine for the goal that that client had, which was they wanted to go out and be able to have a meal together. So they were looking for two hours, that the dog would be comfortable being alone. And by the end of 3 months, we had hit 2 hours. That is extremely unusual. It's usually much slower than that. But and he never had a regression either.
Wow.
And after that, at about 2 months, I'm like, okay, so I really need to make sure that you guys understand that this is not a normal case. Most cases will have regressions and plateaus, and he hasn't yet. So when I went ahead and graduated them, because they had reached their goal, I was really clear. Look, don't be surprised if you run into a plateau or a regression. This is how you continue to increase the time. But reach out immediately if you're starting to see problems again, because always it'll be much easier to get back into the swing of things, and he won't drop as much. So that was really fun. Um, and a lot of cases don't actually stay with a separation anxiety trainer um, for the whole duration. We help get them through the most complicated parts, and then when it's just about building duration, we send them off with good instructions, and of course provide that feedback and support if they need it. um, and they work on the duration on their own. And so that saves a little bit in the pocketbook, um, because as you can imagine, based on what I've said, it's very extensive and intensive hands-on training by the trainer, and there is a price tag to that, right? And so my goal is to get them to the point where, if finances are an issue, they can move on and handle things on their own, and just need to tap me when they're running into problems.
Yeah. And I guess really, if you look at it, there's kind of a price tag either way, because if your furniture is being destroyed or your
Yep.
floors or, the stress,
Yes.
how much does it cost?
The
The,
blinds, the
everything.
doors,
Or
the
even
door jams.
decide to medicate their dogs and just, I'm going
Hmm.
to keep throwing, it's a bandage solution. I'm sure you would agree. Just going to keep throwing medication at you. That cost really adds up too. So when you take
It
away all
does. And
that,
yeah, it does. And the best protocol in many cases is a combination of some kind of behavior medication to help bring down that baseline anxiety with the training, so that now they're at a place where they can actually be thinking and processing. If they're in a state of panic, then they can't learn that they're actually safe. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the medication helps bring that anxiety level down. And then we have a bigger window in which to teach them that, it's not as bad as you think it is. This is not this, you're safe here.
Yeah. I think it's so important for people to know that there's hope, that
Mm-hmm.
if they've tried all of the methods that might not be the best and they're not working, or they don't know which way to turn, there's really hope.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
yeah, how wonderful is that, not only for them but for their dog? I don't know who it's harder on, actually. It's very difficult for a dog, I'm sure, going through separation anxiety, but as a pet parent, it's got to be really tough. It's like watching one of your kids go through a really tough time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for many people it is. And they don't know what to do. Um, they're frustrated because, their world becomes quite small, as well as the dog constantly being in a state of anxiety when being left, and, repairs to the damage, replacing things because of, either they've been chewed or scratched at or dug through. I had a dog once dug through the drywall. Yeah, when he was left alone. Yes. Went
Okay.
through the
Okay,
drywall.
since we're sharing dog stories, I've got to tell you, I had the most wonderful, magnificent, long-lived black lab.
Mm-hmm.
He ate the tires off of our Weber grill.
There you go. See? Yep. Yep. You
Actually, we
know.
were laughing because Kongs, for those who are familiar with Kong toys, they're supposed to be pretty much indestructible. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Mojo would get one and it would be gone within, 15 minutes. We thought, well, somebody just needs to sell Weber tire grills as dog toys.
And for those people who don't know, if your dog is destroying the regular Kongs, the red ones and then the pretty colored ones, they tend to be less durable. They have black ones out and have for a while. Those black ones are supposed to be more durable, and they do tend to be. So if there's a dog that is just, popping the tops off of that little beehive to get to the treats, you might want to try one of the black ones.
Oh, that's cool. Well, since we're on this subject, and I know it's really not separation anxiety, but are there any other toys you'd recommend for dogs with extremely strong jaws? A lot of them are little dogs. Our dachshund
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
super strong jaws.
There are some companies out there that really specialize in, heavy duty toys. The problem is that, some of them, the dogs don't like the textures, or the other thing too is that destructive chewing for some dogs is very, very calming. Okay. So finding something that you can monitor, that you are fine with them tearing up, an old cardboard box, toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, that kind of thing, and just letting them shred and making sure that they're not consuming parts of it, um, can actually be really helpful for your dog if they're a shredder. Um, but it's really trial and error. And when you give them a toy, you stay there and monitor it. And if it starts coming apart within minutes, then, well, that next toy.
Next, zing.
Not that
Good
one. We're
tip,
going to
though. Thank
cross
you.
that one
And the
off the
black
list.
Kong, that's a really good tip. I haven't had a large dog in a while, so I wasn't really aware that those were out there. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
They probably
Yeah.
have
And they make them
small
in the
ones for
small
dachshunds.
sizes too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They make the black ones in the small sizes too. So,
Maybe rub a little peanut butter in there or something. Just
yes. Just do your dog and me a favor. Don't fill it entirely with peanut butter or cheese. It's not healthy. That would be like you sitting down and eating like a wedge of cheese or half a jar of peanut butter in one setting. And so you want to make sure that you're mixing other things in there. So I find that the most disgusting concoction is the one that they like the most. But think of pasty stuff like pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie mix, but without the spices. Yogurt if your dog tolerates dairy. Um, let's see what else have I used a lot. Mushed up bananas. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't like overripe bananas. Some people love them. I don't. The overripe bananas get smushed up and given to the dogs. So things like that. Some cottage cheese would be good in there, again, if they like dairy, but kind of mix it up. And so I'll do something where there's a little bit of peanut butter, maybe a little bit of yogurt, maybe a couple of treats that they like, and then some tuna. And I just mix it all up into this pasty concoction. And then if you put your Kongs in the freezer, they'll last longer. Sometimes you have to convince them that it's still the same thing. And so if you just leave a little bit of space at the top, put it in the freezer, fill it up, put it in the freezer, let it freeze. And then when you take it out, you've got a little layer that you can put some of the unfrozen stuff in to get them started. And it'll last longer.
Oh, that's a great tip. Thank you so much. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. If you were to, whether someone's had a dog for a long time or they're just bringing home a new adult dog or a puppy, what tips would you give to pet parents for keeping a dog happy?
Well, I think that the first thing that I would do is you want to make sure that your new dog feels safe in their new environment. And that's not always the case. It doesn't matter whether it's a puppy or it's a shelter dog or it's an older adoption from a rescue or even a breeder. You have to think about their perspective, which is that their entire life has been turned upside down. And it may be more than once in a short period of time. So if you have a dog that has been in the shelter and maybe they've been in the shelter for a week, a month, and now they're in another place, plus they were separated from whatever was normal before they were put in the shelter, that's a lot to take in and to adjust to without, if you're just throwing them into the mix and saying, okay, so we're going to walk 2 times a day, we're going to go hiking, you're going to ride in the car, they don't even know where their bed is at this point. Right? And so when you bring home a dog, giving them at least a few days to kind of settle in, understand the inside the house routine. Everybody wants to, I got a new puppy, come over and meet it. That's not necessarily the best thing, because it can be very overwhelming for the dog. And so giving them a few days to kind of decompress, get used to their new surroundings, and then gradually start including some of those activities that you want to do. Start doing the training at that point. Keep the stimulation low, but maybe instead of going for a walk 3 blocks up, 2 blocks over, 3 blocks down and back, you go and you walk in front of the house for a little bit, so that they're starting to get used to the smells of the neighborhood, the activity of the neighborhood, that kind of thing, and then gradually increase their world. The other thing is, I'm a big proponent of positive reinforcement training. It is not always the fastest road to success, but it does have the longest lasting effects. And it really, really helps to build the bond that you have with your dog, which we all want, right? We get a dog because we want our best friend. We want to have that dog that, loves us and, can do things with us. And so positive reinforcement really helps with that. So those are kind of the 2 things. And then just remember that you probably don't know the dog that you have for several months, if not a year. And that's if they don't come with any significant behavior problems.
Oh, that's interesting. So it takes that long for a dog's personality to develop, or just that long for you to get to know a dog, or a combination?
It's a combination, not so much develop. I mean, obviously with a puppy, if you're going through the developmental stages, it's definitely more than a year, because, you've got the puppy stage, the adolescent stage, the young adult stage, and, those are going to cause changes. Okay. But it takes a while for a dog to feel comfortable enough in their environment to start showing who they are as far as their personality. Okay. Um, there's a quote unquote rule. I like to think of it as a guideline. It's 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Okay. So after about 3 days, your dog is used to the environment, maybe not comfortable in it, but at least they're starting to get an understanding of the routine. After 3 weeks, then they're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. And after 3 months, even more comfortable. So um, you want to just give them time to settle into their new surroundings. Think about it if you were to move, okay? You are not comfortable in your new location the day you move in, right? You may love your house, okay? You may love the city, but you're not navigating it with comfort at that point, right? Um, when I made my most recent room move, um, there are some confusing streets around where I am, and I would get lost, right? And not know which turn to make to get back to my house. And so think of it from that perspective. I'm not trying to say that dogs are like humans, but they do need time to settle into their new surroundings and understand how things work and where everything is and what to expect. They love the routine. Um, and so until that routine has been established, it can be a little bit, off-putting. And that's if their dog is not already by nature more anxious or fearful.
So 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. What's the difference at
Yeah.
the 3 week stage?
So at 3 weeks, you can start. That's one of the places where they say that if your dog is ready, you can start expanding their world. So, maybe taking them for short walks, car rides, maybe taking them to the park, um, introducing new skills, um, just kind of broadening their world. And then 3 months, the reason I say it's a guideline and not a rule is because I've seen many dogs take more than 3 months to really totally settle into their home. And that may be the demographic that I work with. But it's more of a guideline, and you're always going to want to meet the dog where they're at. You're always going to be observing when you're introducing something new to the dog or expanding their horizons. How's the dog doing? Do they need support? Do we need to, desensitize them to something or counter condition them to be able to do different things in these environments? So, for at least the first 3 months, you're very observant and not pushing your dog further than they can tolerate without displaying those behaviors that you don't want.
Very good. That's good to know. Very good to know. Um, I I would think most people wouldn't anticipate 3 months as a minimum for their dog to really start to feel comfortable in a household, but it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well,
Absolutely
because
makes
we
sense,
got them because we want to care for them and we want to provide a safe place for them. But we have to think of the dog's perspective, right?
right? Exactly.
There's got to be time where you're actually backing that up with the way that you're interacting with the dog and what you're exposing them to and that kind of thing. If they're constantly being exposed to things that they are uncomfortable with, it's going to take longer for them to settle in, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe this isn't as safe a place as it should be, right? But it's all about that individual's perception. And our perception is, I went to the pound, I saved you, I brought you home, you have a lovely bed, I feed you 2 meals a day, you have toys, I play with you, everything's great.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. And so there's a disconnect there sometimes.
Sure. I know that you have a wonderful website and you have fabulous blog posts there where you teach people about how to look at dog behavior and things to think about. And a lot of it is very eye-opening. I would encourage everyone who's listening to this to seek out Stephanie's knowledge because she goes very deep and a lot of really good stuff that you're going to be able to get from her. How do we get in touch with you, Stephanie?
Well, if you just want information, you can listen to my or watch read my blog on my website. My website is www.caninezen.com, and canine is spelled out, so it's CANINEZEN.com. If you are interested in finding out whether or not I'm a good fit as a trainer for you, the best thing that you can do is on my website, there's a get started item on the menu. There's also discovery, let's chat buttons all over the place. You can schedule a free 20 to 30-minute phone call with me to kind of talk about the challenges that you're having with your dog. So that's always an option. It's something that you're under no obligation to move forward with the training. And it's just finding out whether or not, training is the best route for you. I have a number of trainers that I will refer to if what you're really looking for is basic manners, and it's not as big a case as those that I specialize in. And I have some amazing people that I can refer to there. And I'm constantly building that list because since I am remote, sometimes they're not local to me. And so I am, making sure that I'm getting in contact with as many trainers throughout the US as I possibly can so that someone in your location I'd be able to recommend.
Right.
And then I'm on Instagram at Canine Zen, still spelled out. My Facebook page is Canine Zen USA. I am on LinkedIn. I cannot remember the URL at this point. I don't know if you're going to do notes for the show, but
I
maybe I
am.
can
Just
pass
go
that
ahead
on
and
to
send it.
you.
Go ahead and send it to me.
Yeah,
I'll put it all. Everything is going to be in the notes below. So just look
perfect.
there.
Wonderful. And I'm also on Alignable. So there are a number of different ways that you can reach me. And I also offer on the second Monday of every month, I'm in my Zoom room, and you can access me there if you just have some quick questions. That is also at no cost to you, to the
Wow.
clients. So
That's every
yeah,
week?
month,
Oh,
every month,
every month. Okay.
the second Monday of every month.
That's wonderful. Yeah, make sure you give me that information. I want to put that in there. A lot of people, I'm sure, going to want to take advantage of that. I'll have to take
Yeah.
advantage of that one of these days. That would be fun. That would be fun. Is there anything else you'd like to say? This has been wonderful.
No, I think that, the only thing that I really kind of want to leave everybody with is if your dog is behaving in ways that are problematic for you, get help sooner rather than later. And when you are looking for help, be sure that you vet your trainers. This is not a regulated industry. Some things that you're going to want to look for are certifications by another body. There are about 3 or 4 big ones that will offer certifications to dog trainers. Ask about their philosophy, ask about their approach, um, and if there's anything about that makes you uncomfortable, keep looking, because ultimately you want to be using methods that you're comfortable with. You don't want someone asking you to do something to you with your dog that you're not comfortable with. Um, and it's okay to not move forward with a trainer. It's one of the reasons why I actually offer the free services that I do. Not only do I want to reach as many people as possible, but I also want to make sure that anybody that I'm working with is getting what they need. And I also, just as an aside, your trainer should be someone that you can talk to. And, if something's not working, be able to say that. And they should be able to pivot and adjust things so that it starts to make a change for you and your dog. So that would be the only other things that I, would recommend is do your due diligence. You're going to have your dog for 10 to 20 years, depending on the breed. And so making sure that those things are addressed when you, as early as possible, with someone who's going to work with you and not just, dictate what you should do, whether or not you're comfortable with it. That's not going to help you 5 years down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you said about trusting your gut is so important. If something just doesn't feel quite right, you know,
Mhm.
like you said, it's an expense and you
Mhm.
want to make sure that you're really happy and enjoying the interaction.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
That's great. Thank you, Stephanie. I would love to do this again sometime. I think this is going to be fabulous for people to hear. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a lot of fun. And yes, I would be more than willing to come back and talk a little bit more about, anything that falls into my kind of purview, whether that's behavior mod in general or anything in specific.
Excellent. Take care, and I will talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to Stephanie. I know I loved talking to her. She's a remarkable person, and she's doing a lot of good for dogs and their parents. Yeah, this is a perfect opportunity for you to ask questions. Just post them in the comments below. I will make sure that she sees them and answers them. So have at it. Enjoy. Again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you again soon. Take care.